We're now in 2024. There's a presidential election coming up in the United States and in countries all around the world. This could be the most important election of American history. And to help me discuss that, I have with me author Drew Allen. Drew, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So this election cycle, it's getting ugly. It's getting interesting. Topics are being brought up that I think are really, really important. People are switching side. You've got Republicans leaving because they don't like Donald Trump. You've got black men fed up with the Democrat Party doing nothing for them. You've got attacks in the criminal court law. You've got removal of ballots. There's so much going on. So the first thing that I want you to weigh in on is, from my perspective, I'm seeing a lot of manipulation already in the 2024 election. President Biden and his team have decided to skip going to New Hampshire, and they're moving right to South Carolina because he originally lost New Hampshire because they don't want him. And then he made a deal and gets in with South Carolina. But now the Biden administration is working with Democrat super lawyers to remove Donald Trump, Marianne Williamson, RFK Jr. from ballots all around the country. What do you make of this election interference and manipulation?
Well, it's to be expected from the Democrat Party at this point. For one, their interference in our affairs on our side on a presidential election. This is the third. People have to remember 2016, they did this with Trump-Russia collusion, right? 2020, they did this, interfered by suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. Now we're seeing the worst of it, which is rogue Democrats who are they don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the law. They don't care about, the fire they're setting to the country in terms of removing him from the ballot, preventing him from running, which is unprecedented in U.S. history. By the way, it's never happened ever. So this is a big deal. And then the Democrats, look, they can make the sock puppet Biden their candidate if they want. They prevented RFK Jr. from getting on there. He's running as an independent. That could be a problem for us. We'll see. But they moved the primary. I knew the fix was in because they announced this a long time ago that they were going to change up, the way they were going to do things and go to South Carolina because they know they can get South Carolina. They don't want there to be any question about who they want. And, this is like Donna Brazile and Debbie Wasserman Schultz in 2016. They rigged their own Democrat primary to prevent Bernie Sanders from becoming the nominee. So, Democrats, this is how they operate.
Yeah. So I was surprised when, we see the Colorado ballot removal. We see the removal over in the state of Maine from their Secretary of State, not even, a bench of Supreme Court justices. But I was shocked when Governor Gavin Newsom of California said, no, we're not going to do this. The best way to beat Donald Trump is at the polls. Do you think he was able to say that because he's confident California is going to go blue? Do you think that he wants to run for president and can't have public statements about removing his enemy or his political opponent, even if he's not currently running? What do you think his thinking was behind his comments?
Yeah, well, a couple things. Firstly, Gavin Newsom, he's running a shadow campaign. The Democrats want to run Biden. I want to make that clear. Their plan A is to get Biden, even if he can just, has a pulse. If they can get him across the finish line like they did in 2020, that's the real objective. But I don't mean this in any kind of malicious way. I don't wish harm on anybody. But we know that Joe Biden, cognitively, physically, he just doesn't have it. He is one fall away. Anybody with an elderly relative understands it. He's one fall away from being taken out of commission. I mean, that's just the truth. And so, of course, you've got people who are like vultures because these are politicians, right? Gavin Newsom's one of these people. Snake face, snake man, snake person, whatever you want to call him. he's a vulture and he does have aspirations for higher office. And so for him, like, what do Democrats do every time they run? We see how radical this administration is, but when they run for election, they always pretend to be moderates. Bill Clinton pretended to be a moderate, right? Joe Biden, the reason they went with him is because they could pretend that, Lunch Bucket Joe, with this fictitious history that he's invented, like so many Democrats, that he was a moderate, right, to get those votes. So Gavin Newsom runs the worst state. I live in the state, by the way. I live in Napa Valley. Gavin Newsom runs the worst state in America. Maybe New York's worse. I don't know. But California kind of leads the nation in terms of insanity. So he doesn't have a good record. This state is a dumpster fire, not getting any better. And so, of course, he's going to come out and try and make a statement like that to start to suggest that maybe he's not so radical, right?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, California is a different animal. During the lockdowns, you could wear a mask or not wear a mask in Utah starting in May. That they were like, yeah, we're not ruining our economy for this. But my wife and I, we traveled to California, and I see people walking their dog with 2 masks on, and there's not a soul around them. And I'm like, what is going on? I felt like I was on a different planet.
Well, it was totally a different planet, and a planet you don't want to be on because there's like no oxygen and you're going to die. I mean, you don't want to be there. And I was here, of course. I did the opposite though, right? Like I left California and took a couple road trips and things like that. And it was just, I've never felt such a stark, it was like filling my lungs with oxygen for the first time, going to a gas station as soon as I got to Idaho or somewhere else. And you just see people that are still you're like, what? People are enjoying their lives? Things didn't change for these people. I mean, it's not just your own decisions. It's like the overall feeling in the air, depending on where you lived. In California, of course, I mean, you were like a pariah. People looked at you like you had leprosy. If you didn't have a mask on and so on and so forth. I mean, I didn't do it, but in some cases you didn't have a choice. You were absolutely forced to do it if you wanted to get a coffee, if you want to do whatever. But it was a nightmare, and people should remember what that felt like. Those who experienced it, or at least read about it, because that's who Democrats are, and that's what's in store for people if we continue down this path and Joe Biden or some other Democrats reelected. Like, that is your future.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just absolutely shocking. Now, you've said publicly, you've got a book that this is the most important election in our country's history. I hear every politician running for high office say that, but why do you, Drew Allen, believe that this election cycle is so important?
Yeah. Look, everybody's got a book. They're hawking a book, whatever. My book happens to be the most important book in America. I'm kind of kidding, but it's look, it's not hyperbole. It's not hyperbole. I know people have said it. It might have been true in the past, but the difference here are the stakes. We have never lurched so far left so fast. Everything's unprecedented. The illegal immigration, the national security issues that have come up, the economy. Every issue that we're facing under the Biden administration is arguably worse than it's ever been. And because the economy is so big, the country's so big, and because we have so many enemies looking to take over, China, Iran, other places, Russia, who would love to see us fall, we're at the top still, but we're in decline. And so that makes it that much more important that we do something and address it, because it could all slip away tomorrow. I mean, I feel like it's like the proverbial, the straw that broke the camel's back. What's it going to be? Is it going to be the immigration issue? Is it going to be China invading Taiwan? Like, we are that close. It's that perilous. Life goes on for us, you, me, Stephen, and your audience. It has to, but we also have to acknowledge that, look, the illegal immigration issue, like all these issues we can deal with as a nation with strong leadership. It's not going to be easy, but we can turn it around. If we allow the Democrats to set the precedent that they can control and manipulate our own elections by prosecuting unjustly the leading candidate in the opposition party for president, we're not coming back from that. Not in a way that you want to imagine, because that's the end of free and fair elections. We cannot allow that. There has to be a response from the American people that there's a line in the sand and this has to be it. They cannot be permitted to do this. We cannot allow them to feel like, oh, they sabotaged themselves. They didn't go with Trump. Trump didn't win because, we kept him off the ballot. It is imperative that the American people understand that it is necessary if we want to save the country. It's not going to be the end of it, right? This is like the beginning step. And then we've got to spend our lives, riding the ship. But if we do not reelect Trump and tell the Democrats and the Marxists and the left to pound sand that they can't do this, we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. The thing that is interesting to me is I interact with a lot of Republicans. I interact with a lot of libertarians and even Democrats, family, friends, and they all complain, oh, everything's so expensive. Life's become more difficult. I hated these lockdowns. I wasn't sure whether to get this shot or not. But then you ask them, so are you going to vote for Trump or Biden? And they're like, I'm going to go with Biden. And so it's like there's still a disconnect. It's like, okay, I read yesterday on, I think, Breitbart News, it said in a head-to-head poll between Trump and Biden, they're neck and neck. And I was like, how are they neck and neck? This is crazy. But then Biden beats DeSantis, Biden beats Nikki Haley. And I'm like, okay, where are these people coming from that are going to continue to vote to have the American dream erased, to have life more expensive, to have electric cars forced on you? It doesn't, there's a disconnect. Is it the hatred of Trump is that strong that they would rather be poor and have the loser in office? Or is having Trump in office and possibly prosperity and lower prices, more affordable living, the American dream? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, firstly, those people need to read my book and it'll wake them up real quick. But the reality is that those people, it's like a cult mentality. It doesn't matter. They believe intrinsically that the Democrat Party and Biden are just better, nicer, more moral in some way than Republicans or Trump. And we've got to shake them out of that because it's obviously not true. I mean, I go through this in the book and, because it's like different phases of your brain. If you can convince people, like the only question, Stephen, people should be asking themselves in a matchup between Trump and Biden in 2024 is like the Reagan question in his one and only debate with Jimmy Carter. He looked into the camera. What did he say? Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And he won in a landslide because every American said, no, I'm not better off. And that really should pragmatically be the question we ask. We've lived under Biden. We've lived under Trump. No American can objectively say, based on any criteria, that they are better off under the Biden presidency than the Trump presidency. And yet these Americans that might even have the courage on the left or independents to acknowledge that they're not better off might still believe that Trump's mean tweets are just so bad. You see, the Democrat Party and the media, they have convinced Americans to believe all of these lies and their narratives that obviously don't depend upon facts and reality. So Trump is a threat to democracy. They've been saying that since 2016, since before Trump was even elected president. And that's the narrative. Trump's a racist. Trump's this. Trump's that. And meanwhile, you've got Joe Biden, who is all of those things. You've got the Democrats who are a threat to our constitutional republic. You've got them who actually embrace fascism and socialism and communism because socialism's the root. You've got them who are threatening to destroy our way of life. I mean, the climate agenda is another thing. It's not that man-made climate change is an existential threat to our way of lives. It's the climate agenda. But it's fear tactics, and people have got to ground themselves. They've got to hang on to something steady. Hang on to somebody like you. If you got, people that know you out there, Stephen, grab Stephen's hand for grounding for a second and look around you and base your opinions and your views on what you personally observe, not what you're told. Because the narrative's not going to change. The media is going to continue to attack and tell people that Donald Trump's a dictator and he's Hitler. None of that's true, of course. but they're going to say it. And there are people like you're talking about, Stephen, who are going to just believe what the left tells them. If the left told them the sky was, green, they would just say, yeah, it's not blue. As a matter of fact, it's green. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. But we have to engage these people. We have to be willing to put ourselves in the uncomfortable position of talking to these people and reaching out.
Yeah. I had just such a situation around Christmas time. I was invited to a Christmas party. I was speaking with this really nice guy. He's a gay man. I've been to see some of the plays that he puts on. Really nice guy. Somehow politics came up. I tried to stay out of it because I don't really like to talk politics, especially at a family party. It's not my own house. Anyway, he said, well, life has become so expensive under Biden, and we're heading what feels like towards World War III. But if Trump gets back in, there goes democracy. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. You just said life's become really, really expensive. You just said we're on the verge of World War III. But oh, thank goodness we have democracy that we can hold on to, right? That orange-faced man won't crush democracy. Yeah, we might end up in nuclear annihilation, or you'll be pushed into the poorhouse, but at least we can cling to democracy. And I said to him, well, we have differing opinions, but I don't really want to get into it. So I was like, I just couldn't bring myself to get into a fight over, right before Christmas, dinner prayer is said or something like that. But I run into this pretty regularly.
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear you, and it's not that every situation, I'm saying either to you, like Steven, you're a failure, man. How could you let that one slip away? I mean, it doesn't work that way, but we do have to have these conversations, and I don't know. I mean, I've tried to do things with myself, like I'll give somebody that disagrees with me that I know. Okay, I want them to read my book, and I say read it, and then let's go and talk about it because it kind of separates the tension too, and it opens their eyes. I mean. The problem too, Stephen, is you would have to have like a 6-hour conversation with that individual at Christmas or whatever, because he wouldn't know what you're talking about. Like the facts that the things that we talk about and have mastery of, they don't know. I mean, they do not know this information. They don't know that these things have even happened. And I do think, though, we do have to have when you talk to these people in person, you've got to be compassionate, obviously. These are our brothers and sisters. I try to remind people that we're still Americans, and that's what we believe. We've got to project that. And there are some people you're not going to convince. We don't have to convince all of them. We just have to convince enough of them. And I think we can do that. And we have the objective facts on our side. We have experience on our side, and we have to take it upon ourselves to do it. I mean, who's going to do it? Is CNN going to switch and, try and educate these? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not going to happen on CNN. As I became a news guy a couple of years ago, it never really dawned on me that MSNBC was left leaning. It never dawned on me that CNN was super left leaning. Like I would watch them in the airport or at the diner or getting a drink or whatever. And I would look at it as if it was news. I thought I was getting the news. And then over time I was like, why is it like that? Well, I'll give you an example. I don't think I could pull it up fast enough. Maybe I can really quick. Let me just see. But it was MSNBC, and just give me 1 second. If not, no, I'm going to skip it. But it was MSNBC, and it said, this election, Biden versus Donald Trump, who has 91 indictments, 5 criminal cases, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, why was there no description like that for Biden? It was just like Biden, the saint, versus Trump, and then his track record of being a devil. And I was like, wow, they don't even pretend anymore that they're covering the news. They're literally just, as gracefully as they can, pushing that narrative down your throat. And if you hear a lie long enough, you believe it.
Yeah, that is their entire strategy. You summed it up right there. I mean, they can't run on his economy, his achievements. He has none. Joe Biden is the worst president in American history. Of course, we have to also add and acknowledge that he's not running anything. This is why he's the most effective Marxist in American history. It's because there's a void. There's no accountability, because even as much as he must be held accountable, we also know that he's an oatmeal brain. He's wearing a diaper. Like, this guy isn't running anything. It's people that were in the Obama administration. You know, people speculate Obama's down the street. I mean, he's definitely involved in this, but he's not really responsible for anything, and everyone knows it because he can't even read a teleprompter. So this is like the crazy situation we're dealing with. And then I think their brilliant backup plan, like insurance policy, was Kamala Harris, because nobody wants her. Like, if there was actually a vice president that was just arguably a little more intelligent than Joe Biden, people might have impeached him already. Democrats might have already thrown him under the bus, but like, she's so bad and undesirable that somehow Biden just stays in there, so they'll protect him. But this is what we're up against. They're going to tell you, don't vote for Trump, even though it's in your best interest, because he's a mean, nasty person and Joe Biden's a nice guy. But you have to be a ridiculous person, because we're experiencing this in our own lives, and you have to have like no sense of self-preservation to do that. And honestly, I got to be honest, Trump is not the guy that the media paints him to be. He's actually a mostly decent person compared to Biden, for sure. But I don't care if he's nice. Like, I care about my family. I care about national security. I care about the border being secure. Like, this whole thing where we think that the president of the United States needs to be like, I don't know, Jesus Christ or something like that. I don't, you know, you want a decent person, but, you know, the media's changed the landscape. They can convince us to deny our own experience. But like, I just want to feel safe. I want to feel secure. I want my daughter, who's 9 months old, to inherit a better country than I am currently living in, certainly. And Trump's the way to do that. Like, it's that simple. This is the easiest election in U.S. history, in my opinion. It should be.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got a book out, America's Last Stand. Why did you write that, and what are we going to learn reading it?
Yeah, well, I understand there is a very pressing need to wake people up to the urgency of the situation in America. If we do not do everything in our power to reelect Trump over Biden or some other Democrat, it's like, I don't give up on America, but like, it's going to be hard to come back. It's pretty much like, if we want to reclaim America, it starts with 2024 for a lot of the reasons we've already talked about. So I want people to talk about and acknowledge the gravity of the situation. And I give them history. I give them all of these things to help them understand, because when you're living in the present, things don't really seem as serious sometimes. I know that's counterintuitive, but it's like the founding fathers in the American Revolution. Like, when they're up against the British, like, it's a day. Like, they're in Valley Forge and they're freezing, and, you know, the people are dying next to them, but that's just their experience. When we have hindsight and we read it in history, we say, wow. But in that moment, you're just trying to get to the next day. And we're trying to just feed our families right now. But we've got to acknowledge that we are part of history right now, and that we are part of this country's legacy. And it's up to us to protect the country. We are called to do it as a duty. And for so long, Americans have just expected politicians, or they've told themselves naively that this couldn't happen in America, but it is happening, and we have to stand up and do something about it. And so I think we can do it. And so that's why I wrote the book, to bring attention to it, to get people to talk about it, give people kind of a political Bible, if you will, to make it easier for them, to keep them focused too, because we live in this situation where the Democrat Party are like a bunch of arsonists. They're just lighting things on fire every day, so that it's hard to even remember the last, like, tragedy or catastrophe. And so we've got to focus on the failures, and we've got to remind ourselves about the successes of Trump. And then we've got to find the courage and inspiration to stand up and defend him.
Yeah. Well, the book is great. I read through several of the chapters on how the Democrat Party abuses Black Americans, and how to help them. I read about fascism. I read about, are we better off under Biden or under Trump, and how we have to get honest with ourselves. Also, like you say, is Donald Trump the next Jesus Christ? Of course he's not, right? But did he run the country well? Were people more prosperous? Did they keep more of their hard-earned money? or were they increasing taxes? Lots of those things get answered. And you, like you say, you give people the talking points and the facts so that they can educate their family and friends on why it's so important that we stand up for American values. And so I'm just really grateful. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. I think you did a great job. You nailed so many talking points that people need to better understand. If people want to get that book, Drew, America's Last Stand, is it okay if I push them to Amazon to check it out, or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think Amazon's the best, fastest, easiest place to do it. And you know, it's there's a Kindle, there's the paperback, and then I did an audiobook too, and I narrate it because so many audiobooks are boring. And so I did it myself so that they wouldn't fall asleep. Kind of like, you know, when we talk in this interview, people want to watch.
Great, great. Well, if people want to follow you or stay in the loop, what's the best way to do that?
You know, I got a Substack. I'm a columnist, so I write at all kinds of places, but I also do stuff of my own. DrewAllen.substack.com. That's the best place. And I don't know if you're on X, which is kind of a cesspool, it's Drew Thomas Allen, but you know, whatever. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to be on there sometimes.
I just barely got on there and I'm like, I don't understand X at all.
So bad.
But it is a good place. A lot of people get their information and it's easy to follow people. Thank you so much, Drew, for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hey, thanks. It's good being with you. I appreciate the conversation.